the biggest footballing match on the African interclub footballing calendar. The second leg of the 2024-2025 African Champions League final is imminent between Pyramids FC and Mamelodi Sundowns. We're going to have a comprehensive preview for you right after the break. Hello and welcome to another episode of the African Football Report on the African 5% podcast. I'm Maher Mezahi, I'm your host, and as always, this podcast is brought to you by africasacountry.com. Recently, really enjoyed an article on the website called The Global Gateway to Nowhere, which was sort of addressing and talking about I believe it's the European Union's new sort of humanitarian program, kind of like USAID, and about which kind of projects they're pushing and why, and how they're very loan heavy and how they can be crippling for African states to sort of take on. So it's a flagship development program that promises investment and partnership, but delivers debt displacement and old colonial patterns dressed up in green. That's the subheadline. So if you want to read that article, you can find an article to a link to the article in the description below. But if not, if you're just here to talk about Mamelodi Sundowns and Pyramids FC, let's get down to it, because this is the biggest game of the season in African football, and everything is on the line. Not just for the prize money. There's jobs on the line, people and their families that have moved maybe to different countries to take on a specific job. They can be uprooted, sometimes with the result of an important match like this. There's prestige on the line, there's history, immortality. Very few people at the end of their career say, oh, I made it to the final of a Champions League final. There's nothing like sort of pulling out your winner's medal and saying, I did that in 1979. I did that in 2025. I did that. I was a part of a team that did that. So CAF Champions League final is absolutely massive on our continent, as you all know, and very, very excited for this match. Now, I wanted to make a point about the psychology of both teams coming into this match. Now, because they're almost polar opposites. If you're Mamelodi Sundowns, a team that has at times in this competition struggled to score several goals at a time, I think personally, this is a match where you might have to be more aggressive from the jump. If you don't score, you're eliminated. If Mamelodi Sundowns come away from this match with 0 goals scored, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. They are eliminated. Now, if they concede 1 goal, they're not necessarily eliminated. So for me, the margin of, if you're gambling, the margin means more to the side of we need to at least score. Scoring is more important than keeping the clean sheet for Mamelodi Sundowns. It's the polar opposite for Pyramids FC. If they don't score, if this match finishes 0-0, they're champions. If you concede, you can lose. Keeping a clean sheet, in my opinion, is more important than scoring. And Pyramids is a team that has not struggled to score and has struggled to keep clean sheets at times, especially against more difficult opponents. And so it's weird because teams are going to have to go against their strength. Sundowns are going to have to go against their strength and sort of throw everything at the wall. And Pyramids, it's almost the opposite. I mean, this is conventional wisdom, right? Things are much more complicated and complex than that, but they're almost should be more focused on defending and not giving up stupid goals than scoring goals here. Now, there's also a little bit of a difference in the preparation for this match. Mamelodi Sundowns were singularly focused on this return leg. They wrapped up the PSL, the South African League, a few weeks back. They had really 7 days to employ all of their mental strength and energy, all of their neurons, on how to beat Pyramids FC. That's it. That's all they've had to focus on. Pyramids, on the other hand, are chasing a historic treble. They've won they're there running for the Egyptian Cup. And then they had the final match of the Egyptian Premier League on Wednesday, where they had to play Ceramica Cleopatra. I believe Al Ahly had to play, I want to say, Farco. And basically, Pyramids needed Al Ahly to lose, and Pyramids needed to win as the table is at the moment, for Pyramids to win the Egyptian Premier League title. Both sides go on to win landslide victories. I think one of them was 5-1, one of them was 6-0. And they both celebrated as if they were champions. Why? Because Pyramids FC believe that Al Ahly have not been docked points for forfeiting a match earlier in the year against Zamalek. And that's literally what the law states, is that if you forfeit a match like this, you have to be docked 3 points. And Al Ahly were not docked the 3 points that were necessary. And as a result, or it might be they were supposed to be docked 6 points, they were only docked 3, something like that. And as a result, I think this is going to be something that we're going to hear about probably heading into next season. Might have to go to the Court of Arbitration of Sport, because in my experience, North Africa, uh, these things can get very messy. And the governing bodies, whether it's the federations, the leagues, anything like that, they're not very decisive. They're scared of the clubs almost of Al Ahly saying, you know what, then we're not playing in the Egyptian Premier League next season, or vice versa for Pyramids FC. So I think this is something that's going to be messy, drawn out. But Pyramids celebrated as if they were Egyptian Premier League champions. Like, we did our job. Surely the law is going to be upheld, and surely we're gonna be crowned Egyptian champions. But still, that had to take a lot of mental energy. That had to drain a lot of their, in my opinion, a lot of, yeah, like, if when you're so emotionally invested into something, whether you get a positive or a negative result, it's still going to take a lot out of you. So, and not to mention they had a match in midweek. I mean, that alone is big, but they had a match in midweek with so much riding on it. Um, I think that's going to be very, very tough. The coach says that, these legal troubles had no effect on him. He said that prior to the first leg. Uh, but I think there's no way that it doesn't have at least a little bit of a mental effect. Um, yeah. So how are these teams going to line up? Mamelodi Sundowns, this is something that I really, really struggled with Mamelodi Sundowns, because I really wasn't sure. Um, I think I think they're going to line up with, one of the big questions that I have is, Mamelodi Sundowns typically, when they go away in the Champions League in a big match like this, they like to play with the double set of right backs, Kulisa Mudau and Tupelo Morena. Okay. Usually they do this because it provides a little bit more of a defensive solidity option, and it's good on the counter attack. Here again, if you go back to what we were talking about earlier, they have to score. So that's why I'm kind of struggling with this one. And the other part I'm struggling with is, who do you play on the left wing? Because Miguel Cardozo started the first leg with Artur Salas and Tashreeq Matthews. And I said prior to the first leg, like, those players have not proven that deserve to play at this level in the CAF Champions League this season. They've had some okay games in the PSL, but in the CAF Champions League, none of them have stepped up to the occasion, um, at this level. Temba's one, it has in the past, and the problem is coming off an Achilles tear, of course. So what do you do about the left wing? I think they have to revert back to that midfield of Adams and Allende and Mokwena. And the fact that Miguel Cardozo reverted to that midfield in the first 30 minutes of the first leg match after going away from him, for me, that he understood that he needs that balanced midfield. So he's going to have that. And you're going to have probably Ikram Raiders after the match he had against Pyramids FC. That he was very impressive as a point guard holding on play. You're going to have Lucas Ribeiro, of course. So who's going to be that third option? Is it going to be Salas? It could be. I think that's a very good option. Well, I would love to play Temba Zwane, but I don't know if he's fit. It's easy to say, the board, Flemingberg, the coach has an agenda. They don't like Temba Zwane. They want to make their players look good and everything. The truth of the matter is, we don't know what's going on the training pitch, number one, and we don't know what the player's exact health fitness is. Maybe that narrative is correct. Maybe. We don't know. And as a journalist, as a fan, sometimes it's easy to throw these accusations. As a journalist, your professional responsibility kicks in. You just say, you can't make that decision. We're not on the training pitch. The coaches are on the training pitch. So you can't say like somebody has an agenda against X and Y and Z player, I can't say that. You guys can say that. I can't say that. But me, I would love, like, in a vacuum, not considering fitness and injuries and all of that, I would probably start Temba Zwane on the left. Because I suspect that something is up where he's not physically fit 100%, I would play with, going back to that midfield, same back line, but I would go Reinders, Ribeiro, and Morena. Now, how do I make that work? Because Ribeiro and Morena are sort of both on the right wing. Out of possession, I think they would probably do a 4-4-2. So out of possession, we have Modiba, Labusa, Kakana, and Mudau, backline 4. Midfield 4, you would have sort of Adams sort of kicking out on the left wing a little bit. Not too wide, but on the left wing a little bit. Mokwena, Allende, central midfielders, and Morena as a right back. So there you'd have the double fullbacks. And then Raiders and Ribeiro up top. So it's like a 4-4-2. In possession, they would do this thing where they have the three center halves, Labusa, Kikana, and Mudau. You would have the box midfield of Mokwena, Allende, double pivot, Adams and Ribeiro ahead of them. And then you have Modiba and Morena as wide fullbacks pushing all the way up and keeping their width, and Raiders as your target man. So I think it's going to look very different, obviously, in and out of possession, as they can with Mamelodi Sundowns all the time. Now, one of the reasons why I really want to play Morena, even though I said Mamelodi Sundowns had to score immediately, in my opinion, it would solve a huge problem of having Ibrahim Adil isolated against center halves. Grant Kakana. In the first leg, what we all noticed was that Khalisu Muda was probably man of the match, and he put the clamps down on Ibrahim Adil. He absolutely shut him out, right? But there were, at times, on occasion, moments where Khalisu Muda would take off. He would keep with, or he would be in an advanced position. And Pyramids FC were absolutely brilliant at when that happens. And when they recover possession quickly, they would shoot a cross field diagonal ball over to Ibrahim Adin. And then he would be isolated with Grant Kakana. And that's when he was his most dangerous. And I even, went to the film room and pulled a few clips that I'm going to be posting in this podcast as I'm talking. So you're going to be watching this as I speak. But you're going to see that when it was Adil against Mudau, one-on-one, Mudau was, I think, 5-0 against him. But when Mudau was in an advanced position, and then Adil found space, and he's very good that, as soon as my team gets possession of the ball, they're going to be looking for me in a long diagonal. And he drags his body out into space, and he finds that space, and then he's running at Kikana. That's difficult. But when Mamelodi Sundowns have played Mudau and Morena on the right, as that sort of a double fullback combination, Morena is the one that's pushed up, and Mudau has stayed as part of the back three. Motiba and Morena would push up, and Labusa, Kakana, and Mudau would be part of the back three. So even if Pyramids were to play a quick transition diagonal ball, it would be Adil against Mudau. I think right now Mudau has that huge psychological advantage against Ibrahim Adil. That's one of the reasons why I would play Tapela Morena, especially from the beginning of the match, is that I don't want to have Ibrahim Adil isolated against my center halves from the beginning of, in the first half, for example. In the second half, if you're desperate, if you need Mudau's attacking capabilities, then you can make the switch. But initially, I think I'll keep Morena. Not to mention Morena historically tends to have very good matches away from home in Cairo. So this would be a solution when you're out of possession, right? Or we talk about transition defense. Another reason why I would like to have Morena is I think he's better for counterattacking than, for example, an Arthur Salas or even a Tashreeq Matthews, who are probably more players that tend to drift to the ball. Even Lucas Romero, they want the ball at their feet. But if you have to play a ball up to Rainers, again, who held up the ball brilliantly in the first leg against Pyramids FC. In fact, he bullied Ahmed Sami and Mahmoud Marani, the Pyramids FC defenders. If you can put the ball up to him, usually he needs runners to streak past him. And Tapao Moreno is a player that can do that. Ribeiro and Matthews, they want the ball at their feet, and Salas doesn't have that burning pace. So yeah, but if we do play this and go back to the out of possession formation, you need to make sure that Jaden Adams, Tapao Moreno do their defensive duties, especially Jaden Adams, because again, that danger comes from Mohamed Shivi, the Moroccan right back of Pyramids FC. He's so dangerous. And Pyramids at home are not going to play like Pyramids away. Pyramids away, I thought, again, they were not like Esperance, thank goodness. But they were not sending everybody up into your part of the camp. If this was a neutral match, 0-0, I would expect Pyramids to actually, in this match, have more possession of the ball than Mamelodi Sundowns, which would be very, very rare. I should have looked at how many times teams have outpossessed Mamelodi Sundowns in the Champions League. I wouldn't put it past once or twice in this campaign. But what they do is they camp in your half and they send those fullbacks very wide. Mohamed Shibi and Mohamed Hamdi. And these fullbacks have been two of the best fullbacks in the CAF Champions League. So if they do that, you need Jaden Adams to come back and you need to Tapela Moreno. I don't have any doubts about Moreno, but you need to make sure that Jaden Adams understands that he needs to defend. He defends, but defend wide left. Then as for the going back to the lineup, again, the decision to start Mvala or Labusa, I thought Labusa made a few pretty poor mistakes when judging aerial balls and stuff. I think maybe he's better in possession, but when it's I don't mind who starts, but whoever is the better aerial defender, and I don't know who the better aerial defender is, who's better at winning the ball in the air. Whoever it is, I want them to finish the match. Okay, so because we saw when Pyramids get desperate, they just start pumping in crosses. So whether that's Mvala or Labusa or both, whoever the better aerial defender needs to finish the match. Final really notes for Mamelodi Sundowns. I thought set pieces worked really well all season for Mamelodi Sundowns and even in the first leg. So I would continue to work on the routines that could definitely come in handy. And yeah, we need more shots from Marcelo Allende and Thibaut Mokoena from distance. It's something I've been saying, I think, since the knockout stages started, but again, it holds true. It feels harsh to say I need another big game from Lucas Ribeiro again, because I said that prior to the first leg, and he came up with that legendary moment. But we sort of need another one. One more moment, just to sort of, I think he might leave Mamelodi Sundowns in summer, but just to sort of cap off your career there, if this is the end. One more big moment that can win the CAF Champions League title. And then maybe if you want to do something at a Club World Cup, go ahead and do it. But this is, if you had to say, I can have one last moment from Ribeiro, is it going to be against Borussia Dortmund or Ulsan in the Club World Cup, or is it going to be here in the CAF Champions League final? Obviously, I think anybody would pull the trigger here. And then I said this prior to the first leg again, with playing with emotion, but I'm going to repeat it again. I think this generation deserves a CAF Champions League title. They have a chance to play for one. They've paid their school fees, their school dues, like you guys say in South Africa. So play with emotion. Don't try to suppress that emotion, in my opinion. And of course, both sides need to practice their penalty kick shootouts, because this match could definitely go to penalty kicks. Pyramids, let's switch to Pyramids. I think they're going to line up with practically the exact same lineup. I just have one question. If they're going to have more possession of the ball, do you want to play with, in midfield, Walid El-Karti still, who's more of a physical player, a taller player? He scores crucial goals in CAF Champions League finals, including in the first leg. He's the one that equalized for Pyramids FC. Or should we go back to Ramadan Subhi, who started matches on occasion during the group stages, and who might be a little bit better in possession, in my opinion? Something tells me that they might start with Ramadan Subhi, not Walid El-Karti, but I'm not comfortable making that change. I'd be more comfortable sort of sticking to the team that wins, like the team that won you or that got you the draw in Pretoria. Might as well line up at the same lineup again. Some notes for Pyramids FC. Crosses again proved to be the way that they score goals. They scored again in the last second, sort of at the last kick in Pretoria. And again, it came through a cross. We thought it would be crosses via Mohamed Shibi. And really, if you look at the last 10 minutes of that match, that's like 90% of what they're doing. Just going down the right-hand flank, cross. And Sundowns were defending them very well. But then the cross came from the other side of the pitch, from Mohamed Lashin. And it's one of those difficult in-swinging crosses where if you don't get a touch on the ball, it might sort of bounce into the goal. And eventually, that's pretty much what happened. But Walid El-Karti is the one that lied what he did. So yeah, Pyramids FC, that's how they beat Orlando Pirates, was with crosses. And I think if they're going to beat Mamelodi Sundowns again, it might be through that again. So really, a lot of focus if your Sundowns has to be on stopping the crosses initially, and then be aware of who's crossing the ball. Like Mohamed Shibi is a problem crossing the ball. Ibrahim Adil is probably going to put in a low cross with the outside of his foot. Mohamed Lashin has played, I think he's one of the players that plays the most amount of long passes. So if he's on the ball, even 40 yards from the pitch, he can play in a looping, sort of floating cross into the box. So be careful with him as well. Yeah. I'm going to make a point about the fullbacks, about Mohamed Hamdi and Mohamed Shibi. In the first leg, they were decent, but they were sticking to their right back and left back roles. Here, if Pyramids FC can start dominating possession, getting to the 55%, 58% range, I think we're going to get them not just the right back and left back. I think they're going to start being wide right back and wide left back. They're really going to be overlapping a lot. And so it's more of a risk. And I don't know if it's a risk that Pyramids FC needs to make, because, again, they have the advantage. If nobody scores a goal, they don't have to score. So what's the point of sending your fullbacks forward if you don't have to score? But when they do that, they become deadly, because they're very good at cutting the ball back on the ground. Similar to how Mamelodi Sundowns scored their goal when Mudau was playing the ones when he puts the cut back into Ribeiro. That's what Pyramids FC did time and time again in the group stages. And I think they're much more dangerous when those fullbacks are in those advanced wide positions. So that's something that we could see, because, again, Pyramids FC at home is not like Pyramids FC away. Another key to the match for them is get that right back, Mohamed Shibi Logan. He was the difference maker in the semifinals with 2 assists. He's the hottest Pyramids player at the moment. He could absolutely be a big game changer in the final as well. One more note for Pyramids FC. I thought that Ibrahim Blati Toure and Mohamed Lashin, besides Lashin's assist, I thought both of them were pretty poor, particularly in the first half of that first leg. Blati Toure in particular was very careless with the ball. I think he was dispossessed, or he misplaced the pass 5+ times, which is very uncharacteristic of him, and I don't expect him to be that careless again. And I even thought, besides the misplaced passes, I even thought, like, energetically, the intensity was lacking on his behalf. So I don't know if it almost seemed like if I had to ask him, I would almost ask him, like, "Are you feeling okay? Like, are you a little sick? Are you winded, or do you have a chest cough like me at the moment?" Like, you know? Uh, that tutorial was, I thought, very disappointing, and that's rare for such an experienced player, and I think he's gonna have to bounce back, him and Lachine, but that double pivots and the entire midfield has to be a lot better. I thought the Sundowns midfield was much better in the first half, and the Pyramids FC midfield is gonna have to be a lot better in the second half if they want to ensure that they're gonna win this match. Um, and then finally, the center halves, Ahmed Sami and Mahmoud Marei, I mentioned this before, I thought they were getting bullied by Ikram Raiders, and that cannot happen at home. They need to play on him. They need to win the aerial duels when those are had. If he tries to hold up play, you need to find a way to nick the ball at his feet and get it away from him. Uh, Tug him, elbow him, whatever you can do. You cannot let him impose himself on you, especially away from home. So those two in particular have to be much better as well. They need to be much more aggressive. And finally, like, as final sort of point for Pyramids FC, look, you're at home, right? And to be completely honest with you guys, there's a Pyramids FC fan that reached out to me on Instagram saying, like, "You're being unfair to Pyramids FC. I understand that most of your audience is from South Africa and so on and so forth, but, we do have fans. We do exist." And I asked, like, "How did you become a Pyramids FC fan?" He says, uh, "They're the only other option. Like, I don't like Ahli. I don't like Zamalek. I want something else." And they're an alternative to that duopoly in Egyptian football. So for me, this is like a historic chance. If you want more fans, you want more respect, the I think Egyptians usually are sometimes can be club over country, but this is an occasion where they might say, "You know what? Let's support the Egyptian club. Why not? Let's keep the CAF Champions League trophy in Egypt." So this is a chance for the club to gain the respect of the entire nation and have more people like you. So this can be definitely legacy setting, a club defining victory if Pyramids FC win. Um, so that's something that I just wanted to stress as well, is that maybe I've been a little bit unfair to Pyramids FC. Not say I think everybody, even the players and the coach, acknowledges in the press conference that there's a big problem with not having any supporters, but they do exist. That's not to say they don't exist out there, and I kind of respect the thing of, I don't like that the other two clubs, they're overwhelming, they're everywhere. And the fact that we're trying to break this duopoly, people hate us for it because yes, we have a little bit of money. Yes, we're investing. Uh, and, he was saying, like, almost like everybody hates us already. Don't, like, pour it on. I get it. I'm not really partial to huge investment from foreign entities, especially governmental foreign entities. Uh, being big difference makers in African football. But I like the idea of, a club breaking the duopoly, and this can be a defining moment. I like that word, defining moment for Pyramids FC if they can manage to win it. So prediction time. Um, I'm kind of split here between, what my mind thinks and what my intuition is. And my intuition, it's not like bias. It's not what I want to happen. Sometimes you feel inside of you, like the intangibles. Intangibles, they don't figure out a calculation when you try to decide who's going to win the match. But um, it's very important, from in my experience in the past. So my head is telling me that Pyramids FC should finish CAF Champions League champions. My intuition is telling me no, maybe it's going to be Mamelodi Sundowns. Uh, Again, because of things like, paying your school fees, players with experience, wanting it more. I hate that expression, but I do think it applies here. Um, I my final prediction, I think, is going to be a 1-1 draw. I think we're going to go to penalty shots. And I think Mamelodi Sundowns, with the experience they have with Ronald Williams in goal, um, are going to win the penalty kick shootout. So my final prediction is that Mamelodi Sundowns are champions of Africa. But to be completely honest, I'm not too confident in my pick. I'm like, only, if I were to put a percentage on it, I would say I'm between 52 and 55% sure of my pick. Um, the way I sort of see the match playing out is maybe Pyramid scores first, Sundowns maybe reply as the match enters its final phases, and then Pyramids are sort of forced to revert to that unnatural thing of defending, after a long and tiring week. Maybe Bangladesh Sundowns catch them at the end and equalize. Maybe it's Temba Zwaya that comes in and helps him to get another goal like he did in Cairo. That's how I sort of see the match going out. So maybe 1-1 would be my final prediction. But that's it. Look, it's the end of the CAF Champions League. I just wanted to say thank you all for following along. It's been a long season. I don't think anybody has covered this tournament as well as we'd have on YouTube, at least, since the group stages. So it's been really, really cool. I think when we started the year, we've had around 2,500, 2,600 subscribers. We're closing in on 7,000 now. So big shout out to everybody that's been following along. I've enjoyed it as much as you all have. And yeah, please don't go anywhere. We're going to recap Champions League final for sure. Um, sorry, I didn't have time. I did watch the CAF Confederation Cup second leg. I didn't have time uh, to recap that. As you can see, I'm not at home. I'm at my family home in Constantine, east of Algeria. And so I've been at a wedding, so I haven't really had time to focus too much on doing a recap video for the CAF Confederation Cup final. Um, and then we do keep it locked in if you've enjoyed this kind of content, because the next 2 weeks are going to be absolutely massive. We're going to recap the CAF Champions League final. We're going to be previewing the Club World Cup in depth. And then on June 15th, I'm flying out to the States. And I'm going to be covering one match for each African club. We're going to be going to an Esperance Tunis match, Mamelodi Sundowns match, Al Ahly match, and Wydad Casablanca match. So we're going to be vlogging all of that, trying to speak to people that are there, speak to supporters. So please do keep it locked in. Not going anywhere anytime soon. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and enjoy the final. I can't believe we're finally here. Take care all, and peace.